The Central Weekly, a weekly podcast from the Central Podcast Network. John Henninger.
And Jared the Crone.
Guess what, John?
What's that, Jared?
What episode do you think it is?
Ooh, buddy. I'm going to say 80.
I'm going to interrupt you with 80.
Oh!
Episode 80 of The Central Weekly. Congratulations, John.
And to you, my friend.
You did it. World's best cup of coffee. Hey, we're really excited about episode 80 because episode 80 is going to be a little different than what we've been doing the last 79 episodes. We're still going to chat about our brand new Fall Churchwide series, The Body of Believers, here at Central.
T-Bob.
And then we're bringing in 6 guests. Whoa. Yeah, we've had a lot of guests on the weekly before. Remember last year where we had groups where we had
the whole group?
The whole group.
Yeah.
This time, if you listened to the weekly last week, we asked people to submit their question. The question that we asked them was, how has Central made a difference in your life?
Okay.
And we've got 6 people to start things off with. So we've got 6 people that you're going to hear their voice memo from their phone. Okay. You can tell who's an Android user and who's an Apple user.
Yeah, probably clarity's sake.
And it's going to be really cool. And it surprised me how good these are. Not meaning like, I wasn't thinking much. When you hear somebody speak from the heart in a vulnerable way, and even a way that's not polished, it's just a voice memo. Yeah. But it hits you. And it's super good. I'm really excited.
I'm excited to hear him.
Yeah. So we're going to have Chris Donoho, Melanie Donoho, Patti Rockett, Mike Coleman, Cherita Beehn, and rounding it off, Vore.
Wow.
Not in that order.
Okay.
So I'm excited. What we're going to do is we're going to chat about the sermon, the series that we're kicking off in fall. Super excited about this because it's a Fall Churchwide series.
It is.
The Churchwide. And then we're going to listen to those and then we'll kind of comment and hit those about. So, great. And then if you want to, again, we'll talk a little bit more about this and it's in the description of the episode, how you can submit your voice memo. It's super simple. Just bring up your phone, hit the voice memo, hit play, record that, and then send it to jared@centralnow.com. If you have my phone number, that's fine too. I'm not going to say it right now, but if you already have it, you can throw it and just text me your voice memo.
Awesome.
And this really coordinates to the banner that's going to be, hopefully, it was in there this weekend. Yeah. And it's where we're celebrating 170 years, John.
170 years.
80 episodes is pretty cool. Yeah. But that's only a year and a half. This is 170 years. You don't get churches like ours, like non-denominational Christian churches. It's rare to have a church this long.
It really is. And I mean, like the more people I talk to, the more I realize just how uncommon that is. And I think most times when people hear, Central is 170 years old, or that church is this or that, it brings thoughts and images of like a stuffy old church that doesn't change and whatever. And I think that's even a contributor to just what kind of an anomaly that Central is right now. And so praise God for that.
Bigger than ever. I don't want to say better than ever because that'd be naive of me. I'm not 175 years old. I haven't lived the whole time here. But bigger than ever, and a little caveat, or that's not the right word.
Caveat,
but that I want to give. We're going to talk a lot about the Central Church family, just because that's the part of the family we're on. Right. But God is doing some amazing things in the church as a whole. We're just going to give you slivers and glances and inspiration.
Slivers and glances.
This church. That's the episode we're going to call it. Slivers and glances. So let's chat about the lesson, because in the lesson is a series overview, week 1 of 8. Have they always been 8? This is our 3rd
series.
week.
Yep.
Okay. So you gave a little bit of a background. Let's give a little bit of a background. If you're new to Central, you're listening to the weekly. This is our 3rd annual.
Right. So every fall, for the last 3 years, every fall from basically the weekend after Labor Day through the weekend of Halloween.
Tradition.
So those 8 weeks, we do a church-wide series, which, I mean, you might know, you might not, but on a normal weekend, Kid Depot has their curriculum. Middle school is in their series. Great. High school does their own, sermon series, whatever it is. And they're not necessarily, I mean, obviously it's all under the banner of Jesus Christ and becoming better Christians and all of that. But it's not specifically the same subject for the weekend. So for these 8 weeks, we set this time aside every year where from the youngest to the oldest, we can all be talking about the same thing on the same weekend to allow for a different level of community and communication between families.
Yeah. And again, we've talked about this. There's negatives of a big church. It sounds weird to say that, but one of the, we can maybe get our own little silo of how we do worship. But the key thing is to bring it all together and to say, hey, what are you chatting about? So this gives a great avenue to do that with your family,
Yeah.
or with a kid that you have a relationship with. You have a kid that goes to Central, and they're in your classroom, and you're a teacher. You could chat about the same thing on the same week.
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, conversation-wise, know that if you heard about the hands in Worship Center, that your kids are learning about hands in Kid Depot and across the board.
Yeah, and the third annual year one was the Fruit Farm.
Fruit Farm.
I still remember the Fruit Farm. It's good. I remember how hot it was recording some of that stuff at the farm. And last year we had the
Like the Leaves.
Yeah. And it had a book out there. You don't have a Body of Believers book coming out?
No.
Now available on Amazon. But it was funny because you know how we're doing, you don't know homeschool at the LaCrone household. And so on Monday's my day. And so I'm doing kindergarten curriculum with the twins.
Okay.
Just let that sink in. Jared LaCrone sitting in the living room.
Wow.
Yeah. And so Maria's got this really great curriculum. I forget the name of it. Something about, like, basically you're tying in God's wonders with the alphabet, essentially. And we were on L, we were on leaves, and literally it sounded like you wrote this lesson on L and how we are like the leaves.
No way.
They did not use the word "we are like the leaves," but it was pretty much John Henninger's like just splash all over.
Wow.
And the kids loved it, of course, because but it's a good series. So this series, The Body of Believers, you didn't take my idea. I'd like to bring that up here and now. How hurt I am.
You had a good idea.
Yeah. Out of Egypt.
Playing.
Yeah, that sounds more like a movie title.
It does.
But I agree with maybe you and some other people and the obvious fact. That'd be hard to do 8 weeks worth of that. That's more of like a VBS couple nights. But anyways, but The Body of Believers, we're going to go.
Still on our way.
Still trapped in. So here's the thing. So we're going to go overview this week, the whole body. And then you're going feet, hands, mouth, ears, eyes, mind, and heart.
Yeah.
And so 8 weeks, all the way really up until Halloween.
Right.
So through what is it, October 29th?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
So we're excited about that. And then what we're going to do, again, like I said, in this next 8 weeks of the Central Weekly, we're going to be bringing in your story. So let's talk about the lesson. Okay. I loved how you said that Romans 12, it's all about that. And we encourage you, if you have not yet, which you probably did if you were in sermon, you heard most of chapter 12, read that again.
Yeah.
Because like you said, and I love that, chapter 12 is the gospel, how we live out the gospel.
That's right. I mean, of all the 66 books of the Bible and, however many chapters there are in Scripture, to me, I'm sure that there's many others as well. Philippians, there's a bunch of others as well. But to me, if I was going to narrow it down, like, hey, man, you read one chapter. This is the one that tells you what it means to be part of the body of believers and to live a Christian life.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's a two-part meaning to this. Explain the two parts.
To the title of Body of Believers?
Yes.
Okay, so every one of us has a physical body, and actual physical parts of our body were designed to bring praise to God. You know, our eyes, our mouth, our mind, the whole deal. So there's a physical part of the body of a believer, the body of a believer. But then together, collectively, we make up the broad scale body of believers. Just kind of different definition of the word body, like physical body versus group of people body. So
what's the grammar term when it's a part of a whole, like the word herd or Trinity? Text that to me right now if you know it, or Jared at Central.
What's the question?
There's a word. What's the word for like many things that make up one thing? Like a herd, like many cattle, and it's the word herd is the word, and gosh, that's what this series is really about. What is that? Because like Trinity is one word representing three. I don't know. Here we go. So let's go. Speaking of amazing individuals.
Oh, nice.
Let's talk about Dr. Barry.
Okay.
Before we get into the nitty gritty.
Hold on. We don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Dr. Barry. So if you didn't know, a secret, it's Jason Barry.
Is it the same guy?
It is. But I'm whispering it so people don't know.
Good job, Jared.
Because I don't want, somebody to listen to this in the kitchen with their family, and then you've got a kindergartner that said, "What?"
Yeah.
Like they heard me. I don't want to ruin that.
You don't want to be
like
the guy to
Santa
let the cat
Claus.
out of the bag.
Exactly. Santa Claus isn't real. But Dr.
You can't say that.
I can say that. So here's what we're going to do. I love Jason Barry, and I don't think you've seen it yet. So we're recording this on a Thursday, okay? So this is prior to the offering, which we're going to get to at the end. But you have not seen the basically animated Pixar of Jason Barry, have you?
No, I have not.
Blown away is an understatement.
Really?
My head literally exploded.
Wow.
It's so cool.
Wow.
Our graphic designer, Aaron Fadler, is on top of his game with this series. Again, I'd say that just because he's using his God-given talents to glorify God. That's why I say that. But it's just super cool because I love how, again, this series really can lean very, not childish, but it's just very appealing to all ages.
On purpose, right? I mean, it's a simplified concept with a kind of a family-friendly sort of a vibe to the look of it visually. So it's kind of an appealing thing for all ages.
Mm-hmm. So, again, I can't wait for you to see the first Bear. I've seen the rough cut.
I'm going to go watch it after this.
It's really good. And, of course, he digs a little bit on John Henninger. I don't know why they would do that.
Ouch.
Do you think people, you get we like working with each other? Like, do you think it's to the point where like, wow, they're still beating up on James?
60-year-old James.
I don't know. I would just imagine like somebody like, wow, those staff members are really mean to each other. It's all in good fun.
No one likes James. But in reality,
he's my one of
everyone loves James.
Speaking of people that we love, Hayden Paninsky, and he gave you I love that story of this team manager.
Yeah.
I get to be on the team.
Right.
How often is our attitude not like that?
Right. And the fact that the kid says, I made the team, and Hayden's like, I just don't see it, you know. I see you,
but it's the perfect
I don't
example.
See you making the team.
When you go back into where the lead voice and the important voice, like I love that. Like, you're not playing and shooting baskets, but you're making a way for that team to win.
In sports, in business, in church, we give the impression that unless you're the lead man, you're a no man, and that's just not the case in the body of believers.
I love too how. What lesson was this where you talked about that? Prepare you in the dark for their future.
I've said that before, and I don't remember what lesson that was, but it's
so true. And this, I'm glad you brought that back in because a lot of people think if I'm not in the spotlight, then I'm not important, or if I'm not in the spotlight, I'm not living out my God-given calling. Baloney.
Right.
You are. It's just we all are different. Just like I don't like to show my toes. I'm just not a toe guy.
Yeah.
But yet they're super important. I couldn't walk and run if I didn't have my toes. Do you get the point I'm going here? Yeah.
Gotta have your toes. Gotta have the little guys.
And if my toes were on my face, I wouldn't be a very good looking guy.
Right.
So like they're meant to be there and they're meant to function there and they're meant to be hidden.
Yeah.
And I love how you mentioned some qualities just even to make our church service run. You have so many people that never get seen.
Yeah, sure.
But they are part of, just as you speaking up from your microphone. Same thing. They're doing this. It's just as important.
I mean, like, I think sometimes as the person on the, and I think you and I both probably have a unique perspective because we've both been on both sides of this equation. You know, like I've had moments where I get a lot of attention and credit, and I've had moments where I got zero attention and zero credit because what I was doing was to support somebody else. And which that's kind of like, as we grow and mature, that's kind of the mindset that we have to adopt in the body of believers, is that really, I mean, I said it in the sermon, but really as we grow and mature, the mindset has to be like, it's not for the credit of this man, but it's for the one, who created us. Yeah.
And I love your point talking about last week, faithfulness leads to effectiveness. I mean, that's so true. If you are popping in and out of things and you're not steady and in that and committed to that, you're not going to be as effective.
Right.
And that's just true. And that's why it's amazing to see even our staff and the people that have been at this church. Being 170 years old, you have people that have been here for 70, 80 years.
Right.
So their ministry is effective because they've been here. They've seen growth. They've seen some things that, problems and amazing things that have happened. So their faithfulness leads to effectiveness, and we couldn't do what we do without them. And I think that's overlooked because I think a lot of times people think that they need to do something else to be more effective. Like, I'm not being effective here. I need to move and go. And maybe God's calling you out of that, but I think sometimes he's calling you to stay where you're at and be effective where you're at so then you can be the most efficient and the most, for the whole thing. So a lot of times I'm not being seen. I don't feel I need to go. But no, you're really fulfilling what you need to be doing.
And sometimes
that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that that's really kind of my point about a lot of those people in the Bible. I mean, the Bible is full, and I mentioned a handful of them, but the Bible is full of people who were really found in the shadows, being faithful in little before they were ever handed much. Yeah. I mean, David, Esther, all the disciples. I mean, just across the board, there's just a lot of examples of people kind of prepared in obscurity for what God had in providence.
David's a great example because he was anointed, but yet that anointedness didn't right away go to his leadership.
Right, even after he's anointed.
Yeah, his faithfulness stayed. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He was supposed to slay the thousands, but give Saul the glory. And even when Saul didn't get the glory, he made sure he didn't like that. He wanted to give Saul the glory because he was God's king right at that time, or Israel's king at that time.
Right.
Yeah, super good. One thing I wanted to say too, I loved the gift for the trip. Go into that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. So I'm sitting in my office trying to figure out a way, like, what does this look like? You know, and to me, that kind of, at least in my mind, it made sense. I mean, like the kid who's excited to open up his gift. He's been given a gift. I open this up. I rip open the wrapping paper, but it's not a gift that I really wanted. Yeah. And so I don't do anything with it. I shove it aside. I don't pay any attention to it. And then a couple of weeks later, his grandparents come and pick him up. And the gift that he had received was this, was a wilderness kit with, a pocket knife and fire starter and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm not even into this stuff. And so he shoves it aside, doesn't do anything with it. And then a couple of weeks later, his grandparents come and pick him up, luggage is in the back seat. They're taking him on a surprise camping trip. He doesn't have his wilderness kit. He wouldn't know how to use it, even if he did have it, because he hasn't done anything with it since he's got it. And so now all of a sudden he's on a camping trip and he realizes, so the dad gave the gift because he knew in advance about the trip. Yeah. And so often we're like, this isn't the gift I wanted. Yeah. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to hone this gift because it's not the gift that I wanted. Yeah. But God knows what's ahead of you. And he knows the trip that's ahead of you and the need that you have. Yeah. And so he prepares you in advance, sometimes in the dark. He prepares you in advance and gives you a gift to use for his glory where you are. Yeah. Use what you have where you are, knowing that there's a purpose for it.
Stop ignoring your God-given gift.
Right.
Gosh, I love it when we're sitting in the weekly here and I was paying attention and I didn't get that insight the first time that you gave that. I understood the gift for the thing, but I didn't understand that second point or sub point about, hey, use that gift so when your time comes to need it and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
But also I think you're telling all the men that a vacuum, KitchenAid mixer are all great gifts for your wife.
Oh boy.
No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
So, but I
Jared at centralnow.com.
All the hate mail, please go to. I think this was a well-rounded sermon, and again, I love week ones because they're like, I got more I want to talk about, and I got more I want to hear.
It's the setup.
Yeah, it's the setup, but I loved how you finished because all of this and getting ready, knowing your part, playing your part, embracing your role. It's not going to work if you don't have the mindset of Christ. We are able to perform those and embrace those roles through the mindset of Christ, like humility and some of the other things that you mentioned.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Philippians scripture from Philippians 2, I think it is, that says, we must have the attitude of Christ, because Christ didn't consider equality with God as something to be attained, but instead he took off the riches of heaven and came to earth and was born as a human being. And when and talks about basically him being born as a human being was an example of humility and obedience. Yeah. And so that's part of, Jesus himself is an example of playing his role in the picture, and it's the model we should strive to attain.
And I think sacrifice is that key word. I hope that kind of resonates with people when they leave. Hopefully, that the giving with the Carbondale was a little bit of a sacrifice and a stretch for some people. Yeah. And maybe they're calling, maybe you're going back to something in a purpose that you've maybe ignored for a little while, but God's calling you to that. And that's sacrificial living. Yeah. And that's what Jesus did. He could have, he left the riches and the throne in order to do what his God-given role was. And sometimes we're called to do the same thing. So here's what's happening. We're recording this on Thursday. Normally we record on Friday.
Right.
But prior to this, I don't know what's going to happen this weekend with this offering. I'm super, super, super excited to know. But right now we're going to talk about it, and I don't know. And this is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
But I just, like I said last week in my little offering thing about offering for this week was just, I'm excited to see how God is going to use every single one of us.
Right.
And like you said, you said a lot of things with the 500 people. You believe there's 500 people that can give $1,000 and take care of it all. You also believe that there's some people that don't have much, but can also give sacrificially. And that's still just, I mean, that's what in God's eyes, that's awesome.
Right.
And I'm excited because you've said this before many, many times from backpacks to the other things. You give this church body a goal and you put that goal out there.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch God use this central family to accomplish that goal.
It for sure is. I mean, there's literally 170 years of living proof of God's provision for His church time and time and time again. Yeah. And so I have no reason to expect this to be any different.
Yeah. So let's keep talking about Carbondale.
Okay.
The team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is really cool. This was on purpose. We've got the Donohos, Melanie and Chris.
Okay.
That we're going to hear their story first.
All right.
We didn't get a chance to bring them in, sit them down. We might be able to do that one of these episodes. But tell a little bit about why you believe first, and we'll get into chapel later, but why you believe Chris and really the Donoho family is a great pick for this worship spot in Carbondale.
Yeah. Chris and I have done a lot together for a long time. We used to travel together and play a lot of different places, music, stuff like that. And just even on a friendship level, but really, he has been a huge part of this team from a volunteer capacity for
20 years,
a long time.
Yeah,
and so he knows our culture. He knows the way that Eric and the creative arts team are going to operate, and so just from a logistical perspective, there's all that, but then from a heart and ability perspective, I mean, he's got a heart for God. He's a genuine worship leader at heart. And then he also has musical ability to match. He can play, he can sing, he can do the whole thing. So he is just a well-rounded number one pick for this particular position at this season.
And I think you said this, Chris,
Melanie's great too.
Yes, we'll talk. And he's an all-in type of guy. Like he's going to give literally everything he is to make this work. And
I've seen him do a lot of things, and I've never seen him do anything halfway.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that and I think Bailey's going to be coming too to Carbondale, and that's going to be a part-time role. I have quotes up right now,
right? Yeah,
but basically they're not moving because of just the way it's going to really flow. At least at the beginning of how they work with Eric and his staff, and bringing from the technical aspect, but same songs in Mount Vernon.
Right,
Chris is leading the same songs in Carbondale, and one of these episodes we need to talk about Danny's story too, Danny Kaufman's story with German. But again, I see God all over this decision with Chris. It was funny because my home church in Effingham, we've got a worship guy that's on the verge of retirement, and he's there. So Effingham was looking for kind of a new worship guy. Hey, Central's a big church. They were like, hey, do you have anybody that you can float our way for this potential job? Eric and I instantly thought about Chris, and Chris thought about it, and he's turned down a lot of offers to lead worship because he's never wanted to leave Central, but he's been kind of called to these things. And so when this came along, he saw the writing on the wall too. And it's just great. And Maria is so excited about Melanie because Melanie, the last 2 years, has been such an instrumental part of the kept women's ministry at Central. And I'm just excited to see her like I don't want to say leadership role, but she's been a behind the scenes type of person.
She has.
And she'll still probably be doing a lot of that behind the scenes, but she's going to be in the forefront, maybe with guest services. And just really, she's got such a great heart. And she could cut hair okay. Like that.
Melanie has a heart for ministry. You can see it in their kids. You can, the kind of family that they are. And Melanie will be just invaluable to the whole ministry as it gets kicked off in Carbondale.
Yep. So I think that's the time. We're going to need to hear their stories.
Let's hear it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to play their voice memos about how the Central family has made a difference in their lives. And then John and I'll be back and we'll comment a little bit on the Donohos. We'll talk about who we got next. And I can't forget about, Chapel Davis. So we're going to play now the voice memos for the Donohos. Here they are, John. You like that transition? Here you go.
So how has being a part of the Central family made a difference in my life? Well, I would say ultimately it's a sense of belonging. Being in a church that I feel that we are a part of a family of. And Central, as like any other church, you can get as involved as you want to be or as uninvolved as you want to be. And I think our involvement, not just my involvement, but my wife and my kids, our whole family's involvement has helped us to grow closer to the Lord and grow in our walk. But also we've built lifelong and life-changing relationships with people that we'll have forever. The opportunities that I've had by being a part of the creative arts team there at Central have given me memories that I'll have for a lifetime, from doing live recordings to Christmas at Central, different kinds of community outreach with music, has helped to develop lifelong friends and given experiences that I never would have had otherwise, and I'm so grateful for those. But being a part of this church gives me a sense of safety. It gives me someplace I can go that I know I'm not going to be judged, and we have had our ups and downs over the past 20 plus years, for sure, in our marriage and just in our life in general. We've had some huge wins and some really heavy losses. And I think by being involved and being a part of the church, you have that support group of people that pray for you, over you, with you, and that check in on you, people that hold you accountable, people that encourage you, and people that are there by your side, because they love you, they truly care for you, and they are understanding that life is hard sometimes, and we make mistakes. But through the grace of God, we are given new opportunities and new chances. So our sense of belonging has been a game changer for us, and I think that's what's made us feel like the church has changed our life. We are the church. We're not just a church. And the part is so important because the community of believers is not just about Central. It's not a building in a city, right? It's the whole belief system. It's the whole support group of all of God's people coming together to encourage and uplift and motivate each other. So I'm thankful for Central, for that encouragement, for the motivation, for the opportunity, and most importantly, for the lifelong friends that we've gotten from being a part.
It is really difficult to come up with the words to say what the Central family has meant to us and the difference that it's made in the Donoho family. We have been here for over 20 years now, and this has just become home. Our children were raised here, and they took part in all the children's ministries, and what a blessing that has been to see them grow and to see them come to know the Lord through that. And we've been blessed to be a part of so many different things: the creative arts department, soup kitchen, Thursday night meals, kept ministry. All of it is designed to build relationships and to build friendships and small groups. Our very first small group was life-changing, to be honest, because we have made lifelong friendships that are still so important to us to this day. And we still love those people. We're not in small group with them anymore, but they're a part of our life every day. And just to know that not just on Sundays when you walk in the building, but throughout the week, throughout your days, you have people to live life with. It's such a comforting feeling. And to know that you go to church with your family, with your best friends, with people that truly care what happens in your life. When those people come down and join you at the altar, when you're going through a really rough rough season, and they come and they surround you and they love you and they pray for you. And that doesn't stop when they leave the church building. That continues. And then to also have those same people celebrate with you when you come out of that season, when you come into God's glory of releasing you from that season and moving you into something better, to have those same people celebrate with you and just to cheer you on. It's family. That's what it is. I can't think of a place I'd rather be on Sunday mornings than with my Central family, praising the Lord and knowing what a difference that makes in our life on a daily basis. It's just so comforting. It's just family.
Chris and Melanie Donoho.
Yeah.
If you want to know the reason why they're leading worship at Carbondale, there's some reason right there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just so vested in this ministry in every way. And I'm just really excited to have both of them as part of this team leading the Carbondale campus.
I'm going to have some good group text I'm already with Chris Donoho.
There's no doubt that you will have.
Lots of gifts. It's gonna be fun. Yeah, we'll chat a little bit more about that in the kind of the next episodes to come. What kind of Carbondale looks like? You're going to chat a little bit more about that, from the stage, so people know, what's going to be happening. But it's going to be good. So now we've got Cherita Beehn, followed by Pat Vore and Mike Coleman, and then lastly, get ready, get the tissues ready for Patti Rockett. Okay, here they are.
The Central family has definitely made a difference in my life. I think it all really stems from our phrase, relationships matter most, because they lead us to the relationship that matters most. These are the people that I share my life with. They are the ones who make me brave. They lead me to Jesus when I am struggling. They encourage me and pray for me. They rejoice with me, and they love me always, just like Jesus. They are the ones I look forward to spending eternity with. The Central family has definitely made a difference in my life.
My Central family have been there for me for over 20 years. They have been there through some really hard times, happy times, and everything in between. I love my Central family, and I feel so blessed to call Central my church. I can't imagine going through life without Central.
In the past 2 years, Central Christian Church has literally transformed my life. Past relationships have been reignited and new relationships have been formed. Strong relationships. Relationships with people that I really only had one thing in common with, and it's the church. Those relationships have carried me through seasons of life that couldn't be navigated without a Christ-centered support system. Post-COVID era, I battled seasonal depression. I needed a purpose outside of my kids' extracurriculars to keep my mind busy. So God started aligning some relationships that led to me having a role with Sleep in Heavenly Peace. That has been pretty huge in my life. I get to spend time every week with some of the greatest people on the planet. I just can't be thankful enough for that situation. Men's group's another area where I've developed relationships of all ages, and I get to see different points of views across so many different generations. Serve days and countless other avenues to serve here have allowed me to build relationships with people that I otherwise wouldn't likely seek out. But groups have been one of the biggest aspects that has changed my life. My family has developed relationships through groups that will last us a lifetime. When we started at Central, we were super intimidated by the size of the congregation. So much so that we were unsure if it was the right fit for us. But once we plugged in, we quickly realized Central is right where we're supposed to be. I'm just excited to see how big God is going to move through Central, and even more excited that my family is a part of it.
I would not be where I'm at today if it was not for the Central family. The women in the Kept Sisterhood has rallied around me during some darkest times of my life. Even the men have stepped up and made me feel welcome during some very dark times of my life. Through my past, I have been through a lot of things, carried around a lot of baggage for 40 years, and have left it at the altar and given it all to Christ. And that was all because of being part of the Central family. I would not be here today. I would not be where I'm at today and in my walk with the Lord today if it wasn't for being a part of the Central family. I love them so much. I love them just like that they were my blood. They're all my brothers and sisters in Christ, and I appreciate every single one of them. And being a part of the groups, being a part and getting involved and sharing your story with each other has just made my life so full, so wonderful. And I just love our Central family. Thank you so much for taking me in.
So good. Cherita, Beehn, Pat Vore, Mike Coleman, Patti Rockett.
Yeah, really, really good. And not one particular demographic either across that whole, with the Donohos and with everybody there. Not one specific age or life experience. It's a pretty broad collective group, which is by its nature representative of what? The body
of believers.
That's it.
I thought we were going to do it together.
T-Bob.
I thought we were going to harmonize that. Body. We're keeping that in. We're going to wrap it up for episode 80. Again, if you want to submit your voice memo, just simply get on the phone, click the voice memo app. It's on every phone. Send it to jared@centralnow.com. Also, hopefully this weekend you saw it. Maybe you didn't get a chance to do it. Grab a Sharpie. I think that's how they're doing it.
Yeah.
Check out the Body Believers celebrating 170 years. What would you call that?
Oh, banner?
Banner. Sign the banner.
A display.
And again, the question that you're asking for that banner is.
Yeah, I mean, basically exactly what these people just answered.
Yeah.
I mean, like in a few sentences. I mean, like what has being part of this body of believers meant in your life?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this series. Again, when everybody is looking at the same thing and is intentional in their attention, God moves in big ways. So he's going to hopefully do that in the next 2 months at Central.
In Jesus' name.
All right, let's go for that. And this is my great transition. We'll see you next week for the Central Weekly, episode number 81. We're going to be looking at hands. Nice. I thought you would do some harmony. Okay, bye everybody.